All right, and we're off. Well, like I said, welcome. My name is Rielle Snorton. I'm the Senior Talent Associate here at Venture for America. And we also have some amazing other people on this call. So I would love for each of you to come off mute and share your name, your pronouns, what job you had as a fellow or what job you have now, and what year you were a fellow and in what city. So either of you can go first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a 2019 fellow in Cleveland, and I'm digital marketing manager for Cleveland Kitchen.
Hey, hi, everyone. My name is Kanav. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a VFA fellow 2019 in Cincinnati, and I am a program lead at a small nonprofit called RealWorks.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. And they will also be, helping guide you through this adventure that is this webinar. So here we go. Here's like our agenda for our webinar tonight. So I'm going to spend some time going over what Venture for America is. You also have some spotlight with Megan, and then you will also have some Q&A time. So let's do the first thing. All right, so things are important to know is like our mission. So here at Venture for America, Venture for America is creating economic opportunities in American cities by mobilizing the next generation of entrepreneurs and equipping them with the skills and resources they need to create jobs. I know all of us, like if you're here, there are parts of this mission that resonate more with you. It could be all of it, but these are the things that our mission is what is our like North Star and what focuses us. So it's something that I think it's always important to start with, as well as it's something that's going to be important as you go through the essay round and hopefully the next round as well. So we talk about these American cities. So where are the cities that we currently place fellows in? This is a list of our cities we currently place in. This list is ever changing. We may be adding places, we may be taking away places, but I mean, there's been other cities that have been part of this as well, but you can all read this list. So currently placed in 14 cities in the US. So, as you're thinking about where you want to be, what you want to have your impact be, these are some of the places you may be able to have that impact in. All right. So the application process, you're familiar with some of this already because you're doing it and have done other parts. So you submitted the first part of the application. You answered some questions, you uploaded your resume, you showed your impact, you made 3 activities. Great, you did all that. And now you're here at the online essay process. So you'll have 1 week. Your essay is due this Sunday, 11:59 your local time. So depending on what time zone you're in, 11:59. About why you want to be a VFA fellow. You'll also pitch yourself for a startup job and discuss the VFA city or cities you are interested in. So that is what we're going to spend a lot of time focusing on today, but that's where you are now. If you make it past this, you will be going on to the video interview. Video interview, exactly what it sounds like, an interview, but it's a video. But they'll really want to hear, in that process, you really want to hear about like your experiences, your goals, and what really motivates you to want to be a fellow. And then the final round will be virtual selection day. The selection day is the incorrect date, disregard. But this is the last day this will be the day where you have come together. You'll do a virtual interview with group activities, as well as have an individual interview as well. So this is like the culmination of all of the steps you put in at the very end. So here we go. But yes, what we're focusing on today is the essay because that's the most pressing issue right now. All right, so when you're doing your essay, right, you're like, oh, what is this? I'm doing this and I have to do this next thing. What is it for? So after you've done all of the beautiful things, you've gone through the essay, you've gone through selection day, and you've made it to the end. You've been like, get a letter, saying, well, email, let's be honest. It says, congratulations, you've been admitted to Venture for America as a 2021 fellow. What comes next, right? You'll go through a process of match, which you will use to help find your job, what city you want to be in, where you want to be placed. After match, you will go to training camp, which in the past has been held in Detroit. Last year was held virtually. You'll take place in these programs and you'll learn a lot. You'll meet other fellows, things like that, learn some soft skills. You'll do your fellowship. You'll be a fellow. You'll do all the things that come with that. And then after that, your post-fellowship, you'll be an alum. You can continue working at your startup. You could start your own company. You could go to a larger company. Pretty much the world is your oyster. And you can do just about anything that applies within the laws of physics still after that point. So here's some tips that I really want to share, and I'm gonna put them all together, about what we are looking for when you are writing your essay. Things that are important to show and highlight in them. These are the three things: mission and programmatic alignment, ability to contribute, and character. So the first one is like, how does your interest in VFA connect to our mission? And how does it connect to who you are now, where you want to be, and how are those things in alignment, right? Like, how do those things work together? And you want to make sure in your essay, you're talking about how those two work together and how, and don't silo them. So making sure you can make the connections between maybe past experiences you've had and your interest in entrepreneurship or social impact, and how those two and economic opportunities within the cities we serve connect to one another, right? It doesn't have to be like, I did this in this city, this equals this. Doesn't have to be that, but be able to create and paint the picture for how someone else can see your thought process and why this fellowship is a program for you. When you think about ability to contribute, it's like, how do you make that impact? Because startups operate in very fast paced and dynamic environments. We often look for individuals who can really make an impact. For instance, let's say you are like a marketing manager, a social media coordinator with an extracurricular activity, right, that you currently do. One statement maybe favorable for us could be you coordinated organizations' activity for their audience on Instagram, right? But that doesn't necessarily show me what, like, I heard words, but what was the impact of that? So you may say that I coordinated the organization's Instagram account and activities for more than 50 people, resulting in a 50% more user engagement over the 2021 academic year thus far, right? So you're showing me that you're showing not just me, well, not only me, showing us that you have the ability to bring in results and do something, right? Like, quantify everything. You know, if you tell me you were the treasurer of insert organization, I don't know the organization on your campus. I don't know what it looks like. You could be the treasurer of an organization that has 200 plus people. I don't know every organization on every campus. So make sure you're painting, once again, painting that picture of the impact you had. And then last but not least, character. There's a few things. Do you have a growth mindset? Are you able to see a problem and see not just like the issues with it, but also what solutions could you possibly have? Also, are you able to work with others? I know it sounds trivial, like to play well with others in the sandbox, but like, you're going to be working with not just yourself. So making sure you have the ability and communicating that to us, how you work with others, even if, you know, working with others isn't like your favorite thing to do, are you able to do it? I mean, every person needs their alone time. We all know this, but being able to work with others is really important. So those are like the big things we look for in the essay. So communicating how what you've done in the past can inform what you want and desire to do in the future and how that relates to VFA's mission. 2, what things you've done in the past, giving us some quantitative data about the impact you've had, because that impact can relate to something you can do next. And then last, showing us how you work with others, the type of person you are, and how those things allow you to show up and operate in different spaces and solve problems or create solutions. So that is like, those are the 3 big things that you want to think about, or the context that you want to write your essays from. Now that was a lot. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna let everyone, you know, take that in. I used to be a teacher, so these are some things that I used to do with my students. But yeah, so give everyone a moment. All right, moments passed. We're gonna move on. So I was gonna open up for our spotlight with Megan and Ken. We are going to, the floor is open for you to be able to ask any questions that you may have about the essay process. If you want us to go into more depth, you can also ask each of them about their experience at VFA. However, I'm going to give you some parameters. The parameters of our questions are going to be either essay related to their experience as fellows, or their experience in the application process, right? You can also ask questions about essays as well. but nothing past that. So you can't ask folks what they ate for lunch today. We're not doing that today. We're also not going to ask folks like, if you could figure out the space-time continuum, what would be the first thing you would do or change? We're also not going to ask that. But anything else, fair game as it relates to their VFA experience as fellows, the application process, or specific questions on the essay. But yes, so I will kick it off, so y'all have some time to type your questions in. Megan, can you tell me a little bit about what made you want to become a VFA fellow?
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't learn about VFA until my senior year of college. I went to Stanford. I was majoring in earth systems, which was our environmental science major. I was really interested in working in the food industry. But I'd been working in nonprofits for pretty much all my college experience and was a little bit burnt out in working with nonprofits, to be honest. I knew that I wanted to do some sort of fellowship after graduating because I'd been in a couple based things in college and I really benefited from those experiences and knew how impactful they'd been, both for personal growth and being surrounded by awesome people. So I came across VFA via Google search on food companies and fellowships and submitted a short application. And then as I looked into more, I got more excited about it. I grew up in Columbus and having gone to school at Stanford, I could definitely relate to the Silicon Valley VFA city discourse. I was really intrigued and interested in that mission. And for me, from that point, having my video interviews with different VFA folks and election day really sealed the deal for me that I would be able to find a company in a position that made sense for me as a next step, and was lucky to find a company during MAP that felt like the perfect fit.
Thanks. You can also share. It's not every question is open to everyone. You can also answer the question.
Could you remind me what the question was again?
Yeah, what made you interested in, becoming a VFA fellow?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. I hadn't thought about entrepreneurship or VFA all through my college years. I had always been interested in it from the outsider perspective. I went to Duke and I studied neuroscience and global health. And one thing I had felt one thing I had learned a lot about when I was in my global health coursework was, which isn't something you'd expect, but was just the impact that uplifting economies and working with under-resourced cities from the perspective of entrepreneurship, how much that can uplift communities and make real impact that trickles down all the way down, trickles down to even health outcomes, which is what I was interested in at the time. So I wanted to see if there was any way to get into entrepreneurship. I was looking at startups and I really didn't have the language to do so, but I came across VFA because some older graduates had applied and had really enjoyed their experience. And I saw it as a way to move to a city and have this community that isn't, it's not the typical path that people take. People usually go to big cities and try to find success there. But I thought moving to a small city where that doesn't normally get talent and students that VFA can supply would allow me the opportunity to make a lot of impact. And I really aligned with the mission. So just the mission statement, I think, is the most important thing. I really aligned with it right when I saw it off that Google search, just like Megan. So ended up in Cincinnati and I'm working at a startup nonprofit, and it's it's been everything I could have asked for. So
Great. So I'm going to start tossing you some questions from our Q&A. This is and these questions from both of you unless otherwise specified. What's one thing you wish you knew going through the VFA application process that you didn't know? So what's one thing you wish you had known when you went through the application process?
I think I don't know if this is a good answer, but I remember being very stressed about whether I was writing the right things down. Um, and one thing I realized quickly was that the job application process in general, it's not just one-sided, like one person is trying to get a job or trying to get a fellowship, but it also goes the other way. Just making sure that this is a good fit for you personally. So one thing I wish I'd done more of was just diligencing what VFA is like, what the experience will look like, what truly matters to VFA, working in small cities, working at small startups, and really craving that, or having that drive to build a community in a place that not many people go. So I think I wish I had thought about that a little bit more. And then in my essay, just instead of focusing on what I would think that VFA would want to hear, more of what I actually believe and having that lead me to the right opportunity, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I would echo everything that Kanav said. In addition, though, I think one thing that I wasn't as prepared for going through the VFA process was the quantification thing that you mentioned. So I just I would stress also that that is a really important part, and something VFA really considers is you want to be able to quantify the experiences that you've had, whether it's I ran an event for 200 people, or I was in charge of my student advisor social media and increased our followers by 100 or 1,000, whatever. That wasn't something I was really familiar with before that, but was able to figure out how to do it through the VFA application process. And it's also really good advice for all resumes in general. So just a good thing to know and get familiar with.
Perfect. So we have quite a few questions. I'm going to try to put some together and consolidate them. So there's a lot of questions out right now of how did you pick your city? How did you know what city you want to go to? Why did you pick where you went? So in that realm, how did you end up in what city you picked? How did you pick the city? How did you go about that?
I can go first. I like to analyze things when I'm making decisions. So I actually made a spreadsheet of all VFA cities and ranked them according to different factors. But some of the factors were really subjective. I think a couple of the things I included were whether the size of the fellow community, because that's something that I do think has a big impact on what your environment and interactions are in your city. But something that also was important to me as someone who identifies as queer was understanding the LGBTQ acceptance and social scene and environment in each city. So that was something that I also considered when I was deciding what cities. I think I ultimately picked a top 5 and prioritized applying to those, but I ended up submitting applications to jobs in almost every city. So I think allowing yourself to be open as long as possible is always a good move, just because you never know where the perfect job for you is going to be. And I would say that for me, that's been more important than the city.
Yeah, I'd say very same answer. One thing that a lot of older fellows had talked about when I was going through this process was just that your work and your team is what you spend the majority of your time doing, 8 to 10 hours a day. So making sure that you really that you really connect with the mission and you connect with the work, and that you find happiness doing it is super important. I mean, I personally had joined VFA and I was really excited for a potential job in Philadelphia, because I was that's a big city and has such a vast entrepreneurial ecosystem and has so many fellows. And I ended up deciding between Philadelphia and Cincinnati. And when I had visited Cincinnati and done my job interview and met my boss and knew that I was working in, we were going to do work against the opiate epidemic and innovation in that way. So I thought that was just so high impact. And I really was charmed by the city when I visited. I ended up here. But I think what Megan said about keeping an open mind and applying to just all the cities, depending on where you find the most interesting jobs, is a good way to go about it, instead of limiting just to a select amount.
Great. We have a lot more questions for you, well, y'all, for both of you, not just singular. So some people want to know, like, what was the biggest challenge y'all faced thus far as VFA fellows?
I would say it's like more of a probably common to like first job experience in general, but what's been challenging for me at first was being in a startup environment, very much thrown into things. I had to ask for what I needed. I didn't have a ton of oversight because my manager like traveled a lot of the time. So I had to learn to ask for what I needed, to like ask to set up regular manager meetings, ask for help understanding please. And then later on, as I've sort of figured out my role more, I've also had to learn when to say, no, actually, like my plate is really full. So if you want to do that, like I need to either contract it out or like move something off my plate or move it later. And for me, it's just been something I've had to like learn to like be more assertive and also to like ask for what I need. So those are a couple of challenges that I've faced, and I feel like I've really grown a lot from them in my time with my VFA company.
Yeah, and for me, it's been challenging in a good way throughout my nonprofit startup. It's one employee, or I'm technically the only full-time employee, which when I saw that I'm matched, I almost didn't apply, but I was pushed to, and I'm glad I did, because it's really perfect for me. But a lot of times having to, I work closely with my boss, and she's a great mentor, but having to lead projects almost on my own and have I think what I was doing initially was placing the success or failure of projects solely on myself. So if it didn't go well, then I would blame it on myself, and that's not a healthy behavior to continue. So I think just being alone a lot of time, and my boss is another company I get to work with. It's complicated. I don't have to get into those details, but I think taking on a lot of responsibility and owning the failures in the same way that you would own the successes. And just all of that. Startups are small a lot of times, even though they're a whole range of companies on Match. But
Thanks. I'm going to interrupt our regularly scheduled programming for just a moment and answer some questions I've seen it come up a few times before I, go back to, to the fellow speaking. So I've gotten a few questions around people asking, when you receive your offer letter, are you able to see match options? Let me paint a picture for you. Someone will send you an email and be like, congratulations, you got into VFA, woo, scream from tops of mountains. At that point, it is an offer to do VFA. There is still work that you must do after you said yes to the offer to match with a company. So the offer does not include like, hey, you got into VFA, you matched to Philly at this company. It's not like a match you would think of. You have like friends who may have been in medical school. It's not match like that. It's match like, but not like that. So that is just something I want to make sure that I make clear. And there's been a few people that had questions about that. So that is the process. That is how it works. Back to regularly scheduled programming.
Sorry, can I jump in and say something on the back end of that? I think like one place, like you can see some like types of that VFA has partnered with before on the website, and like that gives you some idea of like the kind of industries or like the type of companies, but you're not going to be able to see like the exact company are going to be offering positions that year. Like they might not have their job description ready yet. to be honest, like the job I ended up taking didn't have the full job description written out the day that I went to like the job fair to interview for the job. So you're not going to know every opportunity that's out there when you accept your fellowship with VFA, but you can have like some idea of what the jobs and companies look like, and you can. It's helpful to start thinking about that before match comes up, like what types of companies you're interested in, or like what kind of roles make sense for you given your past experience. That's getting a little ahead of yourselves, but I just wanted to share that real quick.
Yeah, thanks. And then I'm also going to hit this question because quite a few have asked about it. Okay, one, there is no set number of how many VFA fellows we will select each year. The number is a moving target because it's moving based on people submit applications and how many of y'all come to all the rounds of interviews and do all the things. So there's no set number. It could, well, it's not going to be 1,000. That might be a bit much. We need to hire some more team members, but there's no set number. So don't feel like I'm competing against the person next to me to get into a fellowship position. You're only competing against yourself like you're in a CrossFit gym. Next, what's the average number of applications we receive a year? That number fluctuates and grows every year. This year thus far, we've received almost closer to 4,000 applications. So, you know, well, you know, I don't know what the number will be next year. 2 years ago, it was like 3,000. So, like I said, it's an ever moving target. But yes, some questions for you all have just been, so what has it been like? How has COVID impacted you as fellows, whether work related specifically?
Mine has been a little bit of a seamless transition. I was in Cincinnati from August 2019 to March 2020, and then pandemic hit, so I went back home for what I thought was going to be a month, but ended up being 10 months. But working remote was perfectly fine. My job was really flexible, and I came back here in January, so excited for my last couple months at Cincinnati. But it's been pretty easy in terms of adjusting to work, like most of the rest of the world has.
Yeah, I've actually really enjoyed working remote. My company we still go into the office 1 day a week, but being remote has been really awesome for like figuring out my life schedule in like an ideal scenario. I will say that like as a social life as a fellow, it's just shifted. I think like every social situation has. I'm on our Cleveland CLC, which is a city leadership committee, and we plan like social events and other VFA programming for the city. So a few weeks ago, we had like a trivia night for all the Cleveland fellows, and we all got on Zoom and played trivia together. So I think, you know, fellows still are making a concerted effort to like hang out with each other, whether that's, you know, people you live with in person or virtual events.
Yeah, someone also asked, what has been the most beneficial thing thus far for each of you being a fellow?
I'd say a few things. One is definitely just the network. I'm sure Megan's going to say the same thing too, but the VFA network is just incredible. People are so supportive and kind and helpful. I mean, this week I haven't seen some people in years. I haven't seen, but I talked to 3 2019 fellows who I haven't seen literally since last February. And we talked and we just caught up on each other's lives, saw what projects we were into, what type of work or what work is going on, checked in on each other's mental health. And it was just a really fun conversation. We have that connection with each other because we're in VFA. I'd say another thing is I've been seeing some questions about this, so I'll address it. But I didn't work in startups before my job. The closest thing to a startup I had was working in a neuroscience lab, which is sort of similar, not really. But VFA gave me the confidence that I could be an entrepreneur, that I could be successful in this field, which is something that I didn't have. And especially I mean, I think I just wasn't in the right communities, but just I didn't think that someone from my background could be successful in entrepreneurship. But seeing so many diverse representations and just hearing so many stories and also getting all the tools, I've gotten that confidence, which is it's just been so valuable.
Yeah, echoing what Kano said, the VFA fellow community is amazing. I love being in group chats with like various subsets of the VFA community, including the different affinity groups. So I'm in Venture Out, which is the LGBTQ affinity group, as well as VFA Women. And it's really awesome to be able to like ask for advice, bounce ideas off of each other, have other social events within the groups. Um, I also think that for me, training camp really equipped me with a lot of skills that I was like worried about having, because like kind of I had not done startup or really any like for-profit work before. And so I was a little bit nervous about it, and training camp, I think, really prepared me well. And I've also just learned a ton on the job, and I think have learned to be more confident in the ways that I can learn and grow and pick things up on the fly. So that's been also an awesome part of being a fellow. And then lastly, I'll say being a fellow at your company, whether it's a company that has a lot of VFA fellows or only one, it does afford you a certain like type of status within your company that's like you're going to get mentored. Like people know that you have high potential and see that in you. And at least in my experience, there have been opportunities for growth in VFA companies that I don't know that like I would have had if I wasn't in VFA.
Great. All right. So we're getting a lot. Okay. So people are asking, what was training camp like for y'all? Before you answer, I'm going to tell, I've got a lot of questions about training camp, virtual nature, in-person nature. Training camp as of right now hasn't been officially finalized. The probability of being in virtual seems very high, just due to what's going on outside currently, but it has not been finalized. So that is that. But how was your training camp experience? What were things you did at training camp? What were things you learned? What was the experience like?
Um, Training camp was amazing. It was magical. I had such a good time. It was in Detroit at Wayne State University for us for 30 days about. But each week we had programming from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I think it was really intensive, but I just learned so much. The most fun parts were working with challenge groups. So they pair you with um, different people to work on various projects with, whether it's facilitated by IDEO or Boston Consulting Group, or other local organizations in Detroit. But I don't know, and Megan or Rael, you can confirm this, but I always thought that what they do with the challenge groups is we all take an intensive personality test before, and they place you in challenge groups with people who, according to your personality test, you will butt heads with, which is a good thing. But it makes it just a really different experience, because in some cases, you're not supposed to get along fully with your teammates. And that just makes it a lot more fun at the end of the day. And you just learn a lot more about how to have uncomfortable conversations and progress forward as a team, because that's something you'll need to do in the startup world. So like Rael said, perfect combination of hard skills by learning what human-centered design is with IDEO, and then soft skills through those team interactions. And then I'd say outside of the programming itself, just fellows were so fun to hang out with. We'd play basketball. I organized a basketball tournament. We'd have board game nights. People would explore Detroit together, to go to the museum. And people just put in the group me, and people would hang out. And it was just a really nice situation. But yeah, that was my take. I hope you all get to do it on site and in person. But I did do virtual Redux, which is our reunion, and I got a lot out of it. So I think virtual training camp will still be extremely fruitful.
Yeah, I would also say it was great to use some time at training camp to get to know fellows. Um, there's a lot of time for like social interaction, whether it's like during meals or after training camp is over for the day. And those were some times that I had just really great times getting to know other fellows. And during Redux this year, virtually, I realized that there were people that like I'd met at training camp and like had conversations with, hung out with, and then like hadn't reconnected with until Redux. And like talking to them again was so easy. We slept right back into it, which I think really showed me how easy it is to connect with other fellows, and like you really can find your people in VFA, which is really cool. For me, I loved the trainings that had really knowledgeable guest speakers that VFA has access to, is able to bring in. We also had a really awesome diversity and inclusion workshop. And another one that was really helpful for me was our like web design focus, because I'm in marketing and now I actually use those skills and I didn't have any of them before. So there's also opportunities to get like really focused applied skills depending on what your role is.
Great, great. All right, so these are some questions that are more about the essay. So some people have questions around, can you talk about your essay experience and like maybe what things you wrote in your essays, if you remember what you wrote in your essays? And then I can also just give some essay tips in general that I, have in my back pocket.
Yeah, I know that I wrote about growing up in Columbus and like seeing the difference in Silicon Valley being at Stanford. So I know that I wrote about how being in Silicon Valley, like I was really aware of like people who had no idea what it was like to live in Columbus, and like to feel like Columbus was a great city with so much to offer, but like not everyone realized that. And I also talked a lot about how I was interested in working at a startup because it was different from what I'd done before, but aligned with my future goals and passions and desire to make a difference.
Yeah, and I when I started the essay process, I was stressed because I didn't think I had any experiences that could match with or that could demonstrate that I would show value as an entrepreneur. But when I reflected on it more deeply, I started thinking about how I worked at a small neuro lab and how there were only 3 of us. And a lot of times I worked alone and I had to do these projects and just figure things out. And a lot of times I failed and had experiments that didn't work. And sometimes I had successes, but those sorts of things, just common themes, common skills that you work on in your clubs or in your groups or in your sports, those are all valuable. It doesn't have to be something, you don't have to start like a $100,000 business in your freshman year, or you didn't have to work at a startup necessarily. I think there are a lot of skills that translate across different orgs. Just as long as you're able to communicate that, you'll be great. And yeah, just what Megan said about cities and being able to contribute value. And I talked a little bit about my slant coming at VFA from the perspective that entrepreneurship and improving financial well-being can improve people's health.
Which are all great things. Some quick tips that I'm going to give just about essays. And like, first, rule number 1, read your essay backwards from the bottom to the top, because you will see the words you missed because you don't read backwards, right? So you'll see when you put 2 thes in there, things like that. 2, have someone else read your essay. Many people, when they write and they think the words at the same time. If you have an inner monologue, not everyone does, but if you have inner monologue, while you are writing, you will fill in the blank of the word that's missing and it won't be there. And you will not catch it when you read it forwards or backwards either, because you've already know what you've written and you will replace it. So have someone else read your essay before you submit it. Even if it's like, have them like speed read it, it's fine. Also, do not type your essay in little boxes we provide. Type it in, a Google document or a Word document beforehand so you can spell check, proofread it before you, those are like the basic things, right? Another thing is write your essay as you, not somebody else, or not what you think we want you to have, or whatever voice you want us to think you have for your essay. Write as yourself. Writing yourself makes the most sense because you're going to have to keep being yourself through every part of the essay. So if you're someone else in the essay process and then in the interview process, there's some continuity issues we have, just like when you watch many movies, that's my favorite thing to do, look for continuity issues. It's another story, but we want to make sure you're showing up as yourself through the essay. So those are some tips on the essays in addition to what they have also said. But yes, those are my hot takes on essays. Yes. So some of you have asked, is there going to be more panels for Q&As like this later in the application process? Yes, I will be here for all of your regularly scheduled programming and question needs about the application process here at Venture for America. So if you've enjoyed this evening, there are more evenings with me to come if you go through the application process. If you haven't enjoyed this evening with me and my lovely face, you will still get to see me as we continue to go through the application process. You can just listen to it and not look at it. It's fine. It's totally fine. So there's a few other questions. So what has been your least favorite part about being a VFA fellow?
I've been looking at this one and hoping you wouldn't pick it because I truly don't know what to say. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any?
I don't know. It's a little bit tough. I think initially when I had just started, when I was applying to jobs, when I was deciding between a few offers, I had wished that VFA gave more training on how to negotiate, and to understand what sort of benefits I should be looking for. A few are guaranteed by VFA, like health, vision, and I think health and vision, at least health insurance. You can confirm that, Rael. But yeah, I just what benefits I should look for. Should I ask? I didn't know to ask for a what's it called? The signing bonus that would have helped me move. So just those details. I wish there was more training on, but I'm sure they've integrated that into the programming now.
I can confirm vision is included. Health benefits are included. We want you to be healthy individuals. I can confirm that is true. Also, I can confirm that, yes, we do talk about things you should make sure you ask. When you become a fellow, you also get to spend more time with me as I have a 19-point checklist of things you should ask going into your interview for your job. And one of them is relocation fees. It's one of my favorite things to do. Oh, it just brings you so much joy. So yes, more time with me. If you get sick of it, there'll still be more. Other questions that I have seen come in. Let's do this one. Can you talk more about how your VFA experience is in alignment with like your long-term goals? So like where you see yourselves as more grown-up versions of yourself.
I had mentioned this earlier, but VFA gave me the confidence to be an entrepreneur. I think right now where I'm actually at is I'm leaving my job and my fellowship ends in June. But I applied to med school in the past year, which isn't typical among VFA fellows. But I think being able to, I didn't want to apply to med school before, but being able to approach it from this perspective of entrepreneurship. And especially in my job, we do a lot of work piloting technology with local addiction treatment centers. I think being able to bring perspectives of policy and tech into practice or not practice as a physician would be really interesting and could contribute a lot of value. So VFA has been incredible. And I think it has equipped me with so many skills that I wouldn't have had before. It's a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit different, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I would say that my VFA experience has both like led me towards goals that I had set coming out of college, and also has changed my goals in a lot of ways. Like I mentioned earlier, I really wanted to experience what it was like working for a company in the food space. And I've gotten to do that. I've gotten to see so much of how a company operates and grows and just works, and what the founder experience is like. So because it is a pretty small company in terms of people. So that has been really awesome in fulfilling that for me. I like, to be totally honest, I didn't know how long I would stay with my company or like in my VFA city coming into the fellowship. I was kind of open to it, but like I sort of assumed that like my job would end after the 2-year fellowship period. But that's really not true. It does kind of vary from company to company. It's not a set contract, but like some companies are more familiar with fellows that cycle in a 2-year basis. But my company never had a VFA fellow before, and I'm the only fellow, and I'm very much just like part of the team. And I like am loving my job so much that I definitely see myself staying there longer. And I think also this has been my first experience in a marketing role, and I really like it, and it's not something I would have done if I didn't take this job. So now I'm like setting more goals for myself in what I want to do in marketing in the future in different areas, and yeah, just continue to grow in that way.
Cool, cool, cool. All right, so we got some questions. People want to know, the masses, they want to know, can you speak more about the different sectors and industries that VFA fellows typically work in? I'll hit that point, but also folks want to know what sectors you have worked in personally. So let me give my little spiel quickly. Name an industry, name a sector. We have someone there. Full stop. There we go. I could make you a laundry list of all the sectors we have placed in, but that list is like once again, moving target, can change from year to year. So you can have healthcare, you can have education, you can have nonprofit, you can have tech, you can have finance tech, you name it, we've got it, but we may not have it all at the same time. So once again, when you go through the match process, you'll be able to explore a little bit more. But we do have, within the industries and sectors, there's a variety of roles that fall underneath that. So like, that's something I also tell folks to be mindful of. So like the industry you want to maybe really want to be in, you're like, yeah, I want to do healthcare. And then like you see that the role, you read the job description, you don't like any of those job descriptions, but then you read a job description for ed tech company, like this is it. This speaks to me as a person. So your interests may change. So that's just something to keep in mind. But yes, what industries have you personally worked in, or sectors do you work in, have worked in as fellow?
I am going to answer this and also draw in someone's other question about like compare like what jobs were you deciding between. When it came down to it, I was like sort of at like a final stage right before offers were given for an ed tech company as a sales position, a freight company as a product manager, and my job as a market manager at a food company. So those are all wildly different. And VFA has that and so much more. My job specifically is for a food production company. We make fermented foods and sell them both through e-commerce and through grocery stores all across the country. And I get to work on selling those products to our end consumers.
Great. Yeah, and just echoing what Rael said, there are so many different types of jobs on Match. It's crazy. I really tried to apply with an open mind because I should apply to whatever was interesting to me. So some of the companies I was most excited about were a food court in New Orleans, a natural hair care company in Philadelphia, and then obviously the company I'm at now. An EMR company in Baltimore, an Internet of Things company in Baltimore. I mean, there are just so many different types of opportunities. I think I applied to 20 jobs on Match, but the one I work at now, it's at the intersection of health or healthcare, addiction treatment specifically, technology, and policy. So I get to work with all those different types of people. It's been cool. I got to meet with Ohio Medicaid. I've gotten to work with tech companies in Boston, in California, and then addiction treatment centers here.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, so we have some more essay specific questions. I'm gonna try to hit these last, we're gonna hit 3 last questions. They're gonna be all essay related so that, but if you have other questions, I have 2 more slides to go through. So do you have any, if you remember, do you have any tips you'd like to share about your pitch essay specifically, the pitch essay specifically? If you have that, give you a moment to think about it, you can do that. I also have some tips that I can also pull from out of the vault. So the floor is yours.
I think for us, we wrote the pitch for the first time after we had gotten in, right, Megan? But when I had to write that for Match, I struggled a lot with keeping it professional but also genuine. So I'd say just write the first draft, perfect stream of consciousness, and don't even think about it, and just try to infuse your personality, talk in your voice, just like Rael said, and pare it down from there and edit it accordingly. But I'd say the structure I used was a little bit like a little personality line, just a little bit about me at a high level, like who I am as a person. And then I got into the professional stuff. I think I talked about two or three skills that I have. So I'd say I'm interested in this part of your company, and I have this skill, and this is how I've demonstrated the skill in the past, and this is how I'd like to demonstrate the skill in the future at your company. I did that for 2 or 3 things. That's a little abstract, but hopefully helpful.
Yeah, I would say for me, I tried to structure it in a way that conveyed more general skill areas, because I didn't know exactly what type of roles I was going to be applying for, and I wanted to make sure it worked for most of them. But I think I was then I was able to tweak that when I sent actual messages to individual companies. So what I tried to do is just showcase my best, most impactful experiences, and convey what I had learned from those, what impact I had made, and a little bit of what I was looking for.
Yep, y'all all hit things on nails on the head. So the biggest thing with the essay, thing with the pitch essay is really hitting 3 things. One, whatever job description you have picked or pulling from, circling back to the skills that you have and how those relate to that, and what you bring, what you've done in the past can relate to that role, and how you want to do that role, what you can do with those skills in the future. So your skills you already have, how those skills relate to this job, and what you hope to be doing with those skills in this job. And then last thing, allowing some part of who you are as a person to shine through. That is very helpful, because that makes it specific to you. Because you could have just some generic, I just pulled this from some article, a pitch essay, but things that are important, especially if you're thinking of like, think of this as the hiring manager. As someone who's subbed as hiring manager, I like to be able to kind of imagine who this person is when I'm reading the pitch, that I like get some insight, a little window into who this person is and the skills they have. So when they walk into, like, let's say an in-person interview when outside is open again, or just a virtual one, I'm like, oh, this is who this person is. This is the person that did this and it was able to do this. And this is why they want to be here or why they want to do that. So like, that's also important to use. All right, I am going to move on and I want to hit two things before we have with these two last minutes. Let me, go ahead. Oh. Hit these two last things. All right. You did Q&A. I hope you got what you wanted out of today. If you did not get what you wanted or what you needed, have no fear. You can stay in touch and ask us more questions at selection@venture4america.org. What that means is like, you're just going to be asking me questions and I'm going to send you some answers. Last thing to remember, your essay is due Sunday, the 7th at 11:59 p.m. local time. Local time, the time zone that you were currently in, okay? So, you know, if you start writing your essay on the East Coast and then you fly across country, end up on the West Coast, I don't know how, you're gonna have to figure out the time adjustment, right? And when you started putting those essays in, because going to go based off of that, the first time zone you were in. So if you're moving about the country, make sure you know that and adjust accordingly. But yes, if you do need anything, have questions, hit a roadblock, please email selection@venture4america.org. Also, if you do have questions, you can also email me directly if you need to. It is just Reale, real with the E on the end, REALE, @venture4america.org. So I can be found there. I just, I'll answer. That's how emails work. But yes, as we come into this last minute, do the two of you have any parting words of encouragement for our lovely friends this evening?
Not really. I think I just would echo to be yourself and talk about why the VFA mission is personal to you. I think that ultimately will help you know if VFA is the right fit for you and vice versa, and set yourself up the best. So good luck to everyone applying.
Yeah, definitely want to say good luck and be yourself. I remember the job application process was really stressful, but one thing that grounded me was this quote that I had read, just what is meant for me will never misses me and will never miss me, and what misses me was never meant for me. But good luck. Y'all kill it, I'm sure.
Yes. Best of luck. Have a good evening. Stay warm, stay dry, depending on where you are in the country and the weather. And, drink your water. These are things that are always important. So have a great rest of the evening and you will see me again as you go through this process. All right. Bye, y'all.